Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Money Mondays. I'm Belinda Ray, the Director of Strategic Partnerships here at GPCOG with my colleague.
Paul Johnson. I am the Director of Economic and Community Development here at GPCOG.
And we're here with Money Mondays, regional resources and funding opportunities for our partners. If you have questions as we go through or kudos or anything you want to say to us, you want to praise us partway through, that's also fine. Pop it right into the chat. And we will address it at the end. But that is all I have to say to get us going, and I'm ready to share the screen and send it to Paul.
All right. Before I get started, quick shout out and thank you, Nancy Martin from Portland. I don't think she's in the audience right now, but I just read my newsletter, my economic development newsletter from the city of Portland, and Money Mondays was featured prominently in their email. So we really appreciate the word of mouth. And so thank you, Nancy, if you watch this back. With that, I am going to talk today about the Economic Development Administration was reauthorized by Congress. Caveat, this was about a month ago. So of course, there's a lot of uncertainty at the federal level. But the good news is this, before all the uncertainty, this did have overwhelming bipartisan support. So perhaps once the dust settles, this will be a reality. It's not too much direct money to our members, so to speak, but it's a little bit behind the curtain for us here at GPCOG. So I just thought it would be exciting to share. If everything does go the way that it is essentially or was trending a month ago, is essentially part of my job is funded by the Economic Development Administration. And GPCOG every year gets approximately $70,000 from the Economic Development Administration to fund my activity. And it's kind of an expensive grant for GPCOG because GPCOG actually has to match that by 100%. So as a lot of you know, with these grants, the match is usually 10%, 15%, maybe 50%. But this is an expensive grant. It's a relatively low amount of money. And GPCOG has to essentially match that with member dues for $70,000. The good news is if this all trends the way it was expecting to trend, is that $70,000 will be increased to $200,000 a year, which means that GPCOG will be able to have a little bit greater capacity serving our members in the economic development sphere. As some of you know, I was a one-person show for about 3 years. We've brought on Demetria Pellegrino as our economic development manager. But for an economic development district designated by the EDA, we're still pretty small operationally. So this would be a tremendous opportunity for GPCOG to expand our economic development services. So fingers crossed that this happens. Again, don't know if it will, but as of a month ago, it had overwhelming bipartisan support. And really, that's just good news for GPCOG. But perhaps more importantly, it's good news for our members because we can continue to provide services like Money Mondays if the funding is A, gets reauthorized, and B, is increased. I'm not going to read any of this. This was just here for if you watch the playback or look at the slides. It's just the information stolen straight from the EDA website. So to be clear, none of this I'm reading. I put it there as a reference point for you in the audience if you went back afterwards and you wanted to dig a little bit deeper. And with that, I will hand it over to Belinda.
Great. Thank you so much, Paul. And it's funny you mentioned just the changing atmosphere, how things are a little in flux, because I was contemplating doing something on grant funding, and what's going on with that. And maybe I will next week, but I'm always a little leery of I prep these on Friday. What's true on Monday? So let me think about that if I want to do that next week or not. This week, I want to talk about a couple of opportunities from FEMA. They are BRIC and FMA, Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities, and Flood Mitigation Assistance. So these are both hazard mitigation grants. BRIC is for hazard mitigation activities, and the FMA, Flood Mitigation Assistance, is funding specifically to reduce or eliminate the risk of repetitive flood damage to buildings that are insured under the National Flood Insurance Program. So you need to make sure that you are a participant in the National Flood Insurance Program before you try to go for this one. For both of these, the funding comes from FEMA, but you must apply through the state, MEMA. And just when you thought, isn't that enough text on the slide? No, it is not. I wanted to make sure I got those acronyms on there for you, just in case. So usual suspects are eligible for both of these. And here are the kinds of things that it funds. So BRIC, it'll do all of these things, building code stuff. If you're scoping a project, the management costs of doing a project, your hazard mitigation project, the actual project itself. And then FMA, on the other hand, that has 3 categories you can apply in. First one is capability and capacity building. That one does allow you to create mitigation plans, to get technical assistance, or to do some project scoping. And then there are 2 other. Localized flood risk reduction is kind of, it's for an area, and then individual flood mitigation would be for a specific property. We do have some recent Maine awardees here that I wanted to point out. This is not all of them. There are others. I just picked a few, and it says Maine. A couple of these. Oh no, these are all Maine. That's right. I was going to put in some out of state, but so these are 4 Maine ones, and there were, I think, maybe 14 or 15 that were funded last year. So in South Portland, there was a culvert upgrade, and you'll see that the grant was for 165,000. They came up with 38,000 local to match that. So the total project cost around 200,000, and they got the majority of that from the federal grant. City of Portland got one for training building code staff. And you remember one of the categories for BRIC is building code activities. So they got some money to do that. Tremont had shoreline stabilization scoping, and Thomaston worked on a pump station project. So these are all things that are available. And then I have a link to where you can find some past FMA awardees. There, I didn't find FY23, so that goes back to FY22 for that one. The features of the programs, they have a lot of similarities here. For the funding, BRIC is flexible. There's a maximum of $2 million to the state for BRIC. So you want to get in there and be part of the state application, and they can apply for up to $2 million. FMA also has varying caps depending on the project type, but they are generous caps. The cost share for both of these is 25%. So you are going to have to figure out what's your total project cost, and then you're asking for 75% of that from the grant, and 25% of that you need to come up with. There are, for each of these, the cost share can go down to 10% if you meet certain demographic circumstances, or if there's repetitive loss involved, you might be able to get it down to 10% too. There are a lot of circumstances there. You'll want to read the funding opportunity to see where you fit. Each one of them gives you 36 months to complete your project from the date of the award. Difficulty here, I said a 5, but you are going to be applying with MEMA through the state, and the state has a lot of ways they can assist you in completing that application. And then the timeline, these are due to Maine by March 7th, and then they help get it all together. You want to start working with them now, but they have to get it all organized to send it to the feds by, I think, April 18th. If you want to find out more, there is a webinar that you can watch. There are fact sheets for both of these, web pages, but what you really want to do if you want to get in on this is contact Heather Dumais at the state office for MEMA. She is the person that would help you figure out if your project fits, help you do any kind of cost benefit analysis you might need help with, and really kind of get your application in the queue, let you know if it can be part of the state application. Because remember, you don't apply directly, you work with the state puts in the grant. So that is that. And I think we're good to go here, Paul. Do you have any other, you have advice for the week, or wise words, or anything you wanted to share, or maybe that puppy again, or?
The puppy is actually quietly laying on the couch, so I am not disturbing the puppy right now. So
That's right. Let
Ah,
sleeping dogs lie. That is
I'm like a new father relishing when I get to yes,
F.
exactly.
Mackey. Great minds think alike. That's what I was just, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. All right. Well, have a good week, folks. And we'll see what's happening. And maybe I will do something on just kind of the federal landscape and what it's looking like. And yeah, we will see you next week. Have a lovely week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.